YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of The Cross. I'm your host Chase, aka Larry's, back with a banger episode today. We have Major 3 results. Guys, girls, we have made it. Before we get into everything we're going to talk about today, make sure you hit that like, comment, subscribe button on this video. Check out our socials in the description. Also check out our sponsors as well, and make sure you check out all the other shows that here on the Charge Sports Network. Let's get into today's video. Man, oh man, we are here. So, after the second go around of LA Thieves being number 1 seed coming out of the qualifiers, they actually end up getting their first win as a unit this year. They finally are on the great side of the grand finals. Shout outs to them. They're a phenomenal team. I think Scrap, both, and Hydra had over 1.2 KDs. So just shouts out to them. Those two are two of the top players in the world. So, it was just great to be able to see them get their first win on the board outside of the little Casing Land tournament, but for them to actually get a major under their belt, and especially since as a team they might be peaking towards the right end of the season, and they're really the only team we've seen so far, probably in this CDL quote unquote phase era, that's actually a team that can actually win and step toe to toe with them. Now, obviously, the Thieves will have to beat FaZe in a grand finals to pretty much back up all the information that I just told you guys. So, we're gonna shout out to LA Thieves and everything like that. So, we're gonna go through some of the results in terms of the placings and things like that. So, obviously, the Thieves was first. They ended up beating Surge, who ended up placing second. Again, the second curse of Surge. This is the bit number 2. And Surge lost 4-0 this time. They lost only 3-2 in the winners finals, which suggested, okay, we should get a close best series for the whole grand finals. And it didn't, and it ended up really turning into LA Thieves winning 7 maps between the winners finals and grand finals. So that was not good. If you're a Surge fan, the heart goes out to those fans, because that is a gut punch right there. That is an armor piercing round. That is not fun. It is terrible being on the losing side, especially when it wasn't even close. Your team comes out and gets smoked. And it wouldn't probably even have done a whole lot for the confidence of Surge when you think about it, getting swept like that, even if they would have won the first matchup, which is, an interesting point as well. So Surge gets second, and you got to talk about Ultra with a sub. Burkles gets third, and then Heretics, one of my dark horses that I talked about last week's episode, ends up getting fourth at their own major. Shout out to them. This is their second top 4 placing of the year, and they're pretty much solidified, one of the more solidified teams in terms of making the champs on the winner side for sure. So they get fourth. Essentially, FaZe and Breach get 5th and 6th, and then Optic gets 7 and 8, with I think Carolina as well, if I'm not mistaken. But Carolina and Optic got a lot of work to do. Honestly, Carolina will make champs more than likely, but they're not going to be comfortable, I would say, because there's teams. I don't think Boston will catch them in the standings, but Miami only being around like 30 or less points, I think they can catch Carolina, especially because Carolina they haven't been the Carolina we've seen from earlier in the year, which is very concerning, especially that they dropped Vivid for Mr. Rex, and it hasn't looked good. Even though it's a small sample size, it hasn't really looked too good. So that just brings me to my other point, that Optic is right now, we're going to talk about Optic now. We talked about LA Thieves and, congrats, and now we're going to talk about Optic. And Optic, sitting at 8th, is not really that comfortable with Minnesota right behind them, and they're not too far away. So Optic really have some work to do. Obviously, we've been saying that every stage pretty much since Major 1. So I just don't know. Right now. They're sticking together as a team. From what Shotzi said, Dashy said, a lot of people talked about, hey, maybe you guys should go check out, Merck, he was a sub that played for Beans because of visa issues, and he absolutely slayed. And Ultra still ended up getting top three. I mean, to be honest, for a substitute coming in, there's not many teams that you would sub in for, like a Toronto Ultra, and you would feel comfortable, like the system and the way you play and things like that. You have really just great teammates that can help you out here and there, but not just that, like Mercury really, he held his own. He showed that he can use both weapons, communicated well. So it makes sense. A lot of rumors were going around in terms of the roster changes and things like that. Roster leaks and things like that. But Toronto ends up just re-signing him, not to replace Insider Beans or anything like that, but they're going to keep him on the bench, which makes sense, and they can probably reevaluate everything going into the next year, or this off season. But I think it's a great move by them because. But the performance he had, somebody was going to give him a contract. It's just, let's be real. Somebody was going to give him a contract. So, Optic comes out, loses to the other dark horse, which is Boston Breach. Boston Breach has had a great stage because they were not. And when you look at the CDL point standing, they were not where they were, and by them coming out of this stage the way they did, I think they went 4-1. I talked about it last episode, but for them to pretty much come out from 4-1 and place top 6 at the event, if you're Boston, you're happy with that because you're going to be pretty comfortable looking into these last couple runs in terms of before champs. And I don't think Optic would have to have a really good run. We're going to go back and talk about Optic. I know I talked about Breach there. We're going to go back and talk about Optic. Optic would have to have a really good run to either just one solidify 8 and make it impossible for the other teams below them to get in, or besides Vegas, we already know Vegas isn't going anywhere this time. But Optic would have to have a really good run. This, especially starting with this online qualifiers, and the turnaround is not long because they're getting ready to start out qualifiers for Major 4 pretty soon. So it's not really that they have a lot. These teams have a long time to figure this out, so they're gonna have to figure out quick and try to just take advantage of some of these matches, because if they don't, they will not be in 8th place for long. So they have to have a great run to either just solidify 8th or just see if they can jump Breach in 7 and then just stick there, because I don't think, even if Carolina do fall down, because I think Miami will catch them, I don't think that there's going to be too much more movement in terms of 7 and 8 jumping 6 and jumping 5, because like I said, because 1 through 4 is locked up pretty much at 300. It's like the 300 and up club for in terms of CDL points. So I think everything's locked up there, and then you see a dip in points after that 200 mark. So I think for the teams that is pretty much, I would say fifth and 6th. There's gonna be some movement between those teams, 5th and 6th, and then there's gonna be movement between 7 and 8. So that's really what I want you guys to watch out, for in the standings in terms of these CDL points going into champs. So yeah, I don't know for Optic. They're sticking it out. A lot of people say Skies has to go. The Flank talked about it a lot. Octane, Parasite, they all talked about it. It's interesting because if you're Optic, you're thinking about what's going to help us now, but also what's going to help us in the future. And I honestly think we need not just a one-man change. It'll probably be a two-man change, obviously Hugh and Skies, but I think we also need a culture change. Like wherever we bring in, if we do a two-man change, there has to be a leader and there has to be a culture shift, because I love Shotzi and I love Dashy, but they're really not, great in-game, out-of-game leaders, especially in things that are not looking good in terms of being able to turn it around quickly. They're great players, individual players, skill-wise and things like that, but I just think that they need to have somebody like how Kenny was, or like how Agosti was, so that they can just play their game. And I think we need a culture shift, because right now I think we're just saying, okay, we're Optic, we're going to figure it out, and we're going to make chance we're going to get there. And it's like, we need to really come down and have more of a sense of urgency. That's why I said I think we need a culture shift as well going into this next season, because this has really been an abysmal year after winning champs. And I know there's the winning champs curse like that, but even for most fans of the CDL or most Optic fans wouldn't think that the fall off would be this bad. I mean, Optics placed top 8 at 3 straight events, and they haven't done that since 2014. And this was actually one of the first weekends that Optic and FaZe haven't been in the grand finals since I think the Modern Warfare 2 uh, season. So, and I know a lot of people look at that and say, well, FaZe is pretty much kind of carrying that, but and they're not wrong, but that's just crazy to think that that's really where we are. So we talked about these. We talked about Optic. We're going to talk a little bit about just what Miami's doing. Miami's doing a lot of great things. They're on the up and up. That two-man change of them pretty much bringing in Super and Rincor is pretty good, and I think that's going to be them moving forward. They're not going to really make any changes really. I wouldn't see in the off season. Like, yeah, they're going to be a healthy team in the champs, and they're probably the most dangerous team to any of the top four. Top four being FaZe, LA, Surge, and Ultra. That's the most scariest team to them is Miami for sure. Um, Surge are so close. I think they might. Roster manias, the just the behind the scenes things, the drama. There's been challengers drama as well, which has also been well documented with Omen and Exceed. You can go do your research on that, which is pretty much an absolute crash out fest. And the last thing I have to talk about is going to Major 4. We have seen confirmation that Protocol Hardpoint is going to be going to Rewind. Hardpoint will be in the rotation now. So that's a little bit different. I'm not a fan of Protocol, especially not Protocol Hardpoint too. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Protocol Control either, but to see Protocol go out the Hardpoint pool, I'm okay with that. I think I'm okay with that, and I think most pros be okay with that as well. What I've seen, but let me know, guys, what you think is the favorite for this Major 4, and then the rest of the year. Will FaZe be able to come back? Because we didn't talk a whole lot about FaZe, but they really just didn't look good this qualifier. They went like 3-2. I also spoke about them in the last video. They went 3-2. They didn't look really too good, and then they just ended up getting 3-2 by Miami, which is the team who beat them in the online qualifiers. That's why they're a dark horse. That's a shout out to me. So I think FaZe can get back. If you're FaZe, you just don't. You rather have this loss top. You rather have this top 6 now than to get top 6 at champs. So I think that's where they're at. They'll bounce back. They have phenomenal world-class Call of Duty players on that side. Just their hardpoint has to get better. Their search has to get better. They can't. Usually FaZe doesn't have 2 weak game modes. This stage they did, which is their hardpoint and their search. I expect them to probably be able to figure out their hardpoint before they figure out their search, but I think they'll bounce back. They'll bounce back, and then hopefully we get another Thieves FaZe Grand Finals match, so we can really see who's a juggernaut of juggernauts. But let me know, guys, what you think. Comment section in terms of who's the favorites, who's on the horizon. Well, I don't think do anything. Will they make champs? And yep, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.